to introduce Carolyn Brown to our first YouTube interview. Super excited. Carolyn's one of my closest friends. She's a dietitian as well, and I look up to her tremendously. Carolyn, how long have you been a dietitian?
7 years. Wow.
Oh my gosh.
It's fine. Almost 8 years, I think, actually.
So you've been in private practice for that long?
Private practice for 7 years. I've been at Food Trainers here, seeing clients privately. Yeah, for about that long.
Oh my gosh, that's
really
crazy.
Cool. We get to go through people's life phases with them too, and you get to see people transition through like post-college to marriage to babies, and it's fascinating.
Like the same clients, you mean, that you've had, they've grown with you.
Yeah, and they come in for a little while, leave for a little while. Like our door is always open here, so a lot of times we do have people come in and then go. You know, my goal is to sort of launch people to feel really great. But then as things change, of course, needs change too. So
right, pregnancy needs are going to be different than after pregnancy needs, and
I hope so.
All
yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
So what I love about you is that you are really successful, period, but also really successful specifically in helping people feel their best during those life phases without feeling restricted or developing long-term disordered eating-esque behaviors. Because like we talk about this all the time, so I know you're on the same page as there are a lot of dietitians and nutritionists, no names mentioned. There are specific things going on in our industry right now that you and I definitely don't agree on. And I think we both agree, right? Like it's not a one size fits all, most importantly.
No, and that's so important. And that's something I think I'm learning more and more too, is like, we're not always, you know, I'm not right for every single person out there. And to be able to guide people to who I think is the best fit is like what I hope I can really do. Like this job is for me to help you live your best life. And that doesn't mean just like me making money off of it.
Right. But specifically like the clients that do come to you that are a good fit, you're not giving the same information to.
Yeah, so we pride ourselves at Food Trainers on like completely customizing things for everyone. So that's going to be playing around. If someone comes in as a vegetarian to me, that's awesome, and we'll play around with that. If someone wants to, you know, knows paleo works a little bit better, okay, like that's great information also. So we're really trying to experiment. I really believe in self-experimentation, but like done smartly. And so I'm like constantly playing with new things also and seeing how it fits or how it makes me feel. And then I try to like pass along that information in a hopefully a responsible way. And that's something I think a lot about, of like, I don't just want to make someone skinny, I want to make them feel great. And if they want weight loss, which I think a lot of times RDs are now moving away from, I think that that's okay. Like if you would feel better 10 pounds later, I would love to help you get there in a really smart, sustainable way.
Right. And that's the really like key of what I think I love about you is you're the one of the few, I know a handful, but a handful of dietitians that people may come into at least saying primarily that they want weight loss, right? They don't even know about sort of all the other cool things that you're going to show them about their body's functionality, but are successful in helping them see that goal somewhat immediately through actionable steps without being disordered, without, as you would call it, like losing your social life, right? Because they're not doing anything that you wouldn't do. And as one of my good friends, we both love, I think, wine and fries and all the good stuff that like you don't have to necessarily sacrifice.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's like the most important thing to me is if I feel like I'm not doing my job right, if you have had to completely overhaul your life to lose a couple of pounds, that's not the goal at all.
Right. And I love that you're able to do that. And I wish that I could be a fly on the wall in your office. I've said that. I used to want to intern for Food Trainers when I was in school, but I think I could still use a couple of days at Food Trainers.
I would love to have you. That would be a dream.
Yes. So what I'm so excited to have you on today is like to open up. I think Carolyn and I are very similar on a lot of things. Too similar that we know that we could never be business partners because we're both just a little bit too wacky and we'd have too much fun probably.
But complete disorganization, but it would be fun disorganization.
Yes, it would be a fun disorganization. But what I also love, I think, is that we are really fine with getting like what other people would call vulnerable. It doesn't feel vulnerable to me to talk about feelings, emotions, hard times, boys, right? Whatever it is. Not my current problem, but neither is it yours right now. So that's good.
Different
But
podcast, different interview.
yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, like therapy and things like that, we both are very strong proponents of and open to talking about. So yesterday, I posted on Instagram a video of myself working out from 4 or 5 summers ago. And I wrote in the caption that the picture made me a little bit queasy to look at. So the video made me a little bit queasy to look at. And the reason for that being is because it took me back to that time in my life when I was definitely not happy. It took me back to the time in my place where exercise meant something very different than it means to me right now. And I also just visibly to myself, I don't think anyone else would notice. My body just like didn't look like the body that I currently call home. And granted, I'm 30 now and I was 25 then. Life changes. What I find so fascinating about it is I look really thin. I definitely wasn't like restricting, but I was probably just not living enough. And I was very defined by being a soon-to-be RD, right? I wanted to look the part. And then the most fascinating aspect to me, which isn't really that important, but it's important to my people who are going to listen to this, is I have not changed weights I haven't moved up or down on the scale by very much, maybe 2 or 3 pounds either way in like 5 years. Like I am at my point, and like I've never had a weight issue where I had to lose weight, but I just find it really fascinating that I could look so different to myself at the same exact weight.
Yes.
So anyway.
And that's not, I think a really important part of this is like, there's a moment in time when it switches from that being goals, like, get that and being like, oh, I wish I looked like that, which I hear a lot of in our office, to suddenly being on the other side of it and being like, okay, that wasn't healthy. I know it. I was skinny. We call it skinny Ms, like skinny and miserable. That's not the goal. At my skinniest always, I've been so unhappy.
Right. Right. I mean, and it usually is an indication of something else, like deflecting whatever is going on in your life. So you focus on your exterior seems to make sense.
Right. And being able to control that. I mean, I've said to you before, but like my weight has fluctuated tremendously from college being, probably at least 20 pounds heavier than I am now, to in times of like breakup things and serious depression and anxiety being 20 pounds less than I am now. So that fluctuation for me is something I'm always conscious of, and especially with clients.
So where you are now, you've been 20 pounds above and 20 below?
Yes.
No, that's a 40 weight fluctuation.
Yeah, wow. which is a lot, but I'm also 5'9", and
no, for sure.
So like just also keep that in mind too. But I know really well when I'm, for me now, I usually have about a 5-pound weight fluctuation, and that's where I feel good, and then I kind of get to like.
Wait, I think that's really, really important. 5-pound weight fluctuation, like daily meaning, or what does that mean?
So like around when I get my period, I'm always a little bit extra bloated. I probably will go up 2 or 3 pounds at least. And so that to me is like sort of like you can have, ice cream all the time. And I'm not anti the scale either completely. For me, it's a little bit of like a self check-in, but it doesn't ruin my day. Like I know what it's going to say. I don't get on daily. I probably get on like once a week, or then I'll forget about it for a while, but it's not like the be all end all. That being said, sometimes I'll hop on and I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna, not that I'm gonna work out extra. I'm just like, okay, maybe I will, I usually know that I really don't feel well when I'm at that upper limit for myself. Right.
Okay.
So
yeah. I am pretty anti-scale personally. And for people listening, like what I should have said this at the beginning, this is what I love about our relationship as friends and dietitians is like, we don't have to feel the exact same way. But as much as I am anti the scale, I had a client recently who has just sort of like been spiraling out of control, and she hasn't been able to help herself with, even though she knows the tools. And she told me that hopping on the scale, and more than just told me, it was evidenced after that, but hopping on the scale actually really helped her just to see like, okay, time for change. And she's somebody that isn't, time for change, not meaning like drastic things, but like I can be making the better choice here. I'm doing a little bit of self-sabotage here. Why am I doing this? And for her, that was a really helpful marker. For majority of my clients, right, not your clients, for majority of my clients, it's not something that we talk about. Most people have a long history of, really being tied to that number, but that's not for everybody.
Yeah, so one thing I'll say about that too that's really important is at Food Trainers, we weigh everyone backwards. So no one sees the number. I think of it as like a measurement tool. So I'm going to keep track of it, but I'm not going to tell you what the numbers are. So I'm not like, I'm very much on the same page as you. And it depends on the person too. I have probably a quarter of my clients who come in and don't get weighed at all.
That's part of the assessment, right? Like figuring out their relationship.
Yeah, and it goes back to complete customization. Everything is like completely individualized, which I think is a crucial part of nutrition.
And I'd love to hear your take on this because it drives me insane. I do have clients that I allow them to weigh themselves. I'm not going to do the weigh-in just because it's not something I'm like trying to deliver right away, and I don't want them to think that like I'm focusing on it. So it's just not part of my whatever.
I love that about you. I think it's so important to have.
But my clients that do weigh themselves, whether they do it daily or most of the time I get people away from daily because that's just kind of silly to me. Weekly, I find this really funny, and I'd love to hear if you find it funny or it's part of your normal. People report back decimals to me. So they're like, I'm 164.4. And they're like, well, I was 164.4 on Tuesday, and then on Thursday I was 164.8. Mm-hmm. And like, do you care about decimals?
No, it's ridiculous.
Right, okay.
I think that, you're on a daily basis based on water intake, based on what you ate last night, based on your salt, based on where you are in your cycle and hormones, and what's going on like digestion wise too, your weight's going to change, right? So I have people who get on in the beginning of the day and the end of the day. I have people who wear the same exact thing to every single session here. So that their weight won't change. I have people who take off every article of clothing, and like that's how they feel comfortable. So it's also, that's not for me to be like, you can't do that. But it's just in a way I'm like super aware of someone's sensitivity to it.
But the decimals is just what kills me because it's like my indication of like it being too tied to your worth. Like you're either 164 or you're a couple pounds more, a couple pounds less. Like the decimals just like absolutely kill me. Like I just drank this water. I'm a couple of decimals higher.
I love adding decimals. Drink decimals.
You should weigh more at the end of the day.
Yes, of course.
Yes. Okay. So the normal weight fluctuation day to day, in your opinion, is what?
It's probably about 2 to 3 pounds.
2 to 3. Right. So like roughly, that could possibly even be 4.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely. I see women getting their period who fluctuate 8 to 10 pounds. So not that may mean there's a hormonal imbalance or something more going on in that specific situation, but that's not unheard of either. So that's that's not going to really tell you very much.
Yes, and I think that's just like really helpful for everybody to hear is that like normal weight fluctuations are so totally normal.
Think about even from a volume, if you weighed everything you ate in a given day, it would weigh way more than that. So it's actually pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
If you weigh a sweet green salad or like something like that, it's gonna weigh a pound.
My whole food salad, which is like 3 pounds, because like beef.
$100.
$100 minimum. Okay. Well, what I loved about our conversation, where it was headed, was the part that I wrote that I thought was small that stuck out to you, which was huge, was that I wrote that there was this expectation to be a dietitian meant, right? And one that wanted to be in private practice, wanted to bring clients, was to look a certain way. And I haven't had weight fluctuations. Like I've always been I'm like weirdly skinny on my, like despite eating a lot or eating my normal. But I felt like I had to look the part, and I felt external validation from people that would say things and still continue to say things like, oh, well, you would make for the perfect nutritionist. You look like a nutritionist, right? You're so skinny, my least favorite word. You look like a nutritionist. And that fed into my belief system of, I have to look fit and skinny because I want people to, come to what I'm selling, which isn't what I'm selling anymore anyway. But it was part of this false belief system. So
yeah. I mean, that part blew me away because I think of that a lot, and I don't think I've ever even said it out loud to you before, but it's something I've struggled with a lot historically, and I feel okay about it now, which is always when I can talk about things, when I finally feel good about them. But if my weight was 10 pounds heavier, like say a year or two ago, maybe a little bit longer, but I did not feel like I was doing a great job in my office with clients. And like, how could they reliably trust my advice? Even though I've gone to school, I have my master's, I have all of these credentials, if I feel like my food's out of control, or it just doesn't feel great, or I just feel like heavier today. Or I had a really fun weekend away with my friends, but now I feel fat on a Monday. And so I show up and I'm like, does this person notice? And all of these sort of ridiculous feedback things. And I have clients come to me and say the same thing. I wouldn't go to a big nutritionist, or I only go to you because you look a certain way. And that, as much as it's half a compliment, and it's meant as a compliment, it adds extra pressure to us to maintain that, which is, I'm hyper aware of that at this point. So that was my feedback to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's fascinating. And I think the purpose of why I want to do this is to really, like, whoever listens to this or watches this, is to like disrupt the stories we tell, or the stories we've been telling, and to get the conversation and the language to change. Because I think so much of our disordered culture, and the reason people are rejecting diet mentality completely, is because of the language that we're using. And they're benign, they're seemingly benign things, right? When somebody says that to you.
Meant as a compliment. Like, it literally, these things are meant in a nice way, which is the most confusing part. Like, I know that, but it doesn't mean, like, we're still human too, even if we're experts in this field.
Yeah.
We're gonna have an ebb and flow relationship with food, no matter how much of an expert you are, no matter how much of a great mindfulness eating, you're gonna have a day. And I have the same exact thing. Something that's really changed for me, a friend who is a meditation teacher and breathwork teacher and Reiki said to me recently that she thinks of herself as a midwife for people's experiences. So she's like the vessel for them to happen. And so I've started to try to take myself out of people's experience in that way a little bit, where I'm like, okay, this is about you, so like, let's bring it back to you. I'm not going to go the therapist route and be like, tell me why that matters to my weight matters to, like, I don't want to sit here and do that. But I also think, let's move past that, like, and to not let it really sink in is like my.
No, yeah, you're right. But why do you think we feel that pressure?
Well, because I think society-wise, we still want to, like the magazines, the Instagram models, all of that stuff is still very affecting.
Right.
And like, we're not immune to it, even if we're aware of it,
Right.
which is a scary thing.
I mean, I know plenty of nutritionists that are, from a BMI standpoint, overweight or possibly even obese.
Really?
Yes, I mean, probably. I've definitely met a few that are in the obese category. Again, for people that don't know, like, it's a marker of weight that's calculated by height and weight. Right? That's it. We don't take gender into consideration, right?
Yeah, we do take gender a little bit, but
what? Where?
Because I think men or women should be a little bit, or maybe it's like.
Oh, right. Yeah, so it's a little bit different, but they can be, there's plenty of healthy people that are overweight, but yeah, like, people had said to you, right? Like, I wouldn't go to somebody who's overweight.
Well, do you think, I'm curious, what other industries is it a kind of a direct reflection of your, like, I guess in the workout industry, right?
I was gonna say, like, an athlete, but like that.
But no one else really shows up day to day, and it's like how they look is a direct reflection of what they're doing. It's a rare thing. If you're a marketing agency, it doesn't matter. Or not that it doesn't matter. It's not that it's not going to be an impactful thing, but.
Right. So how did you become, like, what was the shift for you to sort of like become so comfortable in your actions, to be able to go out and have a weekend with your friends, go up a couple of pounds, and still show up to work feeling qualified, if you will?
So interestingly, I think my fluctuations have decreased. So it's more just that I'm not like not that I was like a crazy rager and then showing up on Monday, that wasn't really it. But I think I am not living two separate lives on weekdays and weekends anymore, just as a product of age. because I can't have like more than 3 glasses of wine now, really. But and my taste buds have changed too. Like I love feeling really good. This isn't about weight anymore for me. So that's sort of like I guess the main thing is like it's sort of the motivation behind it switched, and then my weight fluctuation switched.
Cool. So somebody had asked me how I got to the point of like, yeah, how did the motivation switch for me? So for you, it was it was natural, right? Like,
yeah, I've written about it a little bit, and for WebMD, I wrote about like my experience with weight stuff, and really, my sister called me out on not practicing what I preached at one point, and it was like,
wait, how so? What were you doing that your sister called you out on?
I was just eating I was eating candy all the time, like completely, like not really eating vegetables, definitely not cooking. I was still like in probably like a year or 2 into being an RD. And that really hit home, but not for a while. Like at first I was super defensive. It probably took a year or 2 for it to like sink in of like, I want to practice what I preach, and I just feel a lot better on like a cellular level.
Right. Okay, cool. But why in that time, like in your younger years when weight was more of a focus, right? Like being skinny was more of a goal when we were younger for whatever reason, whether it's society or life. How come you were eating like less healthy foods then? Or was it more
half information and half that's what my friends were doing? And like a lot of my friends are not in the wellness industry. You know, we go out a lot of nights to dinner, and like there would be a lot of drinks, and it was like late night eating, and still sort of that post-college mentality that's bled a lot. You know, in New York City, it's like well into your 20s. So I just was still sort of not living a healthy lifestyle. It was like my tagline has been for like a decade now, like healthy lifestyle while living a social life. And I think I wasn't doing the first half of that. So I was like over exercising, running a marathon out of nowhere, and then like eating cookies.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. So it was more like, right, okay. So you were not practicing what you preach, interestingly, sort of like backwards to me. Like I was hyper healthy.
Yeah.
And disordered. But you were kind of like just all or nothing-ish?
Completely, which I see so often, and like I can relate to so many clients because of that. And I feel like my like experience with weight fluctuations and with these all or nothing behaviors like really helpful for me now also, which is like that sort of has switched to, rather than me feeling like shameful about it, like this actually allows me to much better help my clients, right? I've lived it.
Right. And why do you think people are so all or nothing with health and wellness?
Because I don't think because people aren't so clear that it's fun, that it like is fun and that it's for you. This isn't to punish you. This is actually to make you like the best version of yourself and be able to think really clearly and have energy and have really meaningful conversations. And so I think that people are still sort of think that being healthy is like a drag or like sucks. Mm-hmm. I still hear that like, oh, this sucks kind of thing, which it's hard for me to believe it still exists, but I think that we're just on such sometimes like this.
I know. I struggle with that so much because like I was asked this week to write an article on clean eating and how to do it. And I just wrote back like, I can't do this because I don't use that term. And I was just thinking more about that. Like, how could I still help people without, because not, you know, like the thing is with what is clean eating? Like that's sort of an annoying thing because it's not, to me, it's not like I'm clean eating. No, I'm not. I'm clean eating. No, I'm not. Like I might have a salad and then use a dressing that has some ingredients in it that I don't like. Like, is this clean? Is this not? Like that, like that's the shit we need to toss away.
So that's funny. Clean eating doesn't bother me.
Right.
Those awesome conversations where I totally understand why it does bother, where the problem lies. But I also think if as a whole, it does help people look at ingredient labels. Like that's helpful to me.
Right. No, I know. So that's what I was thinking is like, I want to write this article because I want to show people how easy, how to people that think that this is hard, that it's actually easier than you think.
Right.
You know, simple things. I always say, like, when you come home from the grocery store, are you spending most of your time in the pantry or in the refrigerator putting things away? Like, that's going to be an indication of how healthy and alive your food is versus like dead in the pantry. You know,
Right.
obviously some exceptions for, you know, shelf stable products.
Right.
But to write sort of an article about it as to how to do it makes it seem like it's like you are or you're not kind of a thing. So it's not so much that the term bothers me as much as like I don't want people to think like I'm clean eating, so then the weekend comes, oh, I'm not going to eat clean. Like, it's a dance.
Yeah, and it's that black and white mentality.
Right. That's what I'm trying. Like, I feel like a lot of people hear clean eating and they go back to the black and white mentality, and it's sort of like a new diet to them. Not to you, not to me, but to the outsider that's like, oh, what's this clean eating thing? Like, it's like being gluten free.
Yeah, maybe we should just be like cleanish.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree. And like, we deal with a lot of gluten free here. Lauren, who I work with, is gluten free, and we do veer people gluten free, but it's not a priority to me. By default, you're going to be eating less gluten if you're eating a little bit healthier. It's usually the way I think of it.
If you're eating more fruits and vegetables, there's naturally going to be a lot less gluten.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily something I need to like target focus, but for some people. Some people rules do help though too. So that's, again, it's like goes back to customizing everything for a person, because I mean, men work like brilliantly with rules. They need numbers, they need structure, they want to be told like what to do. They come back in a month, they see results, and they feel great. Women, it's very emotional. That's not true for all men, but I would say like
right, not true for all women and not true for all men, kind of a thing. Yeah. So I think that like I feel like our job really is to even help our clients with thinking that like because they're seeing us they're going to look like us, or the opposite, right? So like if for whatever reason you gain 10 pounds unrelated to your food, Carolyn, or if I do, that I'm still valued and worthy as a dietitian because I still have the same years of grad school and the dietetic internship and all the same credentials. So it's like I feel like I at least have a job to break that up, because that's not really fair to just other people that live in larger bodies than I do that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that that's why this conversation, I was so happy that you wanted to have this conversation, because I think people come in without an awareness from it when they're going to see a nutritionist too. Like, obviously therapists have their own issues too. And like, not that we're like currently going through issues, but
human.
It's human.
Right.
Exactly.
And I think like, I remember really thinking that I was going to be such a great dietitian because the way I naturally like God given looked would be like a selling point. And I'm really embarrassed to say that out loud, but
you know, I think that's actually an amazing, beautiful thing, because it's made you do all this other awesome work too, that you're now capable of bringing to people because that wasn't the issue for you. So that might be like another way to think about it. It's like allowed you to blossom into this whole like mindful eating. I mean, you've taught me so much and like tools and tricks that I use today too. So I think, I think that it's allowed you to like focus on other things, which is awesome.
Yeah. I think that like that whole, we need to always sort of like escape for dietitians right now. Like somebody messaged me that they're in grad school and they're feeling all this internal pressure to like eat healthy and look a certain way before they even begin school, right? They're starting at Columbia where I went, and they're sort of going into the entire thing. And like, I think the takeaway message is like your knowledge should lead.
Yeah.
Most importantly.
And hopefully what you're putting out into the world too is, I mean, you need to feel value, internal validation first. And I know we both go to therapy at least once a week to talk this through, but that's been massive for me for feeling valuable and feeling worth external to like what's going on outside.
Right.
Yeah.
I just felt so sad. Yeah. Somebody wrote me that they're pretty embarrassed to say it out loud. And somebody that I personally know too. And she's told me, and she's had her issues with food, that, she used to seek out skinny dietitians because this was the thing she said that really got me. She's like, I know why I was doing it, but it was actually like a cry for help. Like, yeah. And that, like, she wanted somebody to say like, you stop, like you're good. And that part was like, wow, that's really powerful. So it's almost like a lot of people know what they're doing when they seek out
Yeah.
No.
Okay. First of all, what a beautiful thing that people feel comfortable enough sharing this stuff with you. I think that that's so cool.
That was really cool. Yeah.
Fill their hearts to you on social media. Like that's a beautiful thing. And then the other thing is because there's so many there are very thin food bloggers a lot of the time who don't have credentials. And so I think a lot of times people go to them for information, and then you get this whole like just not legitimate feedback from things. Is very confusing. And I mean, I have unfollowed everyone who makes me feel a certain way on social media, but I really think like that adds a huge element to this too.
Okay, so you're saying food bloggers that have a pretty aesthetic, whether it be skinny or fit,
and that's probably why they're so successful.
What'd you say?
And that may be why they're so successful too. So it's just like even though we've maybe moved away from magazine pretty, like we've moved to social media pretty.
Wow, that's pretty profound actually. And I find that, I'm not sure food bloggers specifically, but I'd say.
I didn't mean to hate on food bloggers. I love food bloggers.
No, not at all. I just meant like if I were to group any sort of thing, and I'd say like people calling themselves health professionals that are not RDs, or I don't think like, I think you could be a wonderful nutritionist without being an RD. You could have your master's. You could do so many different types of credentialing that I don't think like RD is necessarily the only way. But I'm talking about people that have like, you know, not a lot of school behind them, and they are helping people, or maybe they're not working one-on-one with people, but they're really dogmatic about what they're doing and how it works. So they're giving out that advice.
Right.
Like, and so that, I think that like one of the best parts of becoming an RD for me was like learning how to counsel and recognizing that like, it's not about me. And my earlier years of going to school, I knew what worked so well for me. And if you said school's over, time to get out there, I would be saying, yes, you should be vegan. You know, you should be doing exactly what I'm doing because it works phenomenally. And how scary that is, you know?
I completely agree with you. That is where, I mean, on some level, the self-experimentation is important, but education really is too.
No, but self-experimentation. But like, there's the distinguishing factors. Like that worked for me. Who am I to say that if it did? I'm not saying it did, but let's say that worked really well for me. Who am I to say that that works for all of you followers, private messengers that, you know, want to know how to get this, how to blah, 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 bloating.
But it's tricky because I do find sometimes I feel like I have to overly edit what I want to say because I'm like, how is this gonna come across to both RDs? I don't know. It's a tricky time with even saying clean eating. I'm like now aware of in a way it's a good way, but I'm like, can I use that in a paragraph that I want to write about cleaning up your act a little bit?
Okay, yeah. Then I think that the trickiest part of social media is knowing your personal audience, right? So like we've talked about this a little bit, like whatever you put on your platform, you know, you've cultivated your audience, and they are, if they don't already know you, they're getting to know you. And, you know, as someone who's my friend, and I know what you do professionally, like I know that you're not putting people into situations where they're disordered, or you're referring them to somebody else if they have an eating disorder, if they are even sort of the slightest bit not right for you, right? That's what we were just talking about before we went live, is like, you know.
Right? So it is important, but I think, just from a practitioner standpoint and a social media standpoint, it's just like a tricky time where you have to be super careful of your words.
And I feel like for me, like you have to be extra socially responsible on Instagram specifically, just because it's a young audience that's holding on to whatever you say.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point. I mean, you figured it out, I think, too.
Writing for WebMD, you know, a little bit more general of an audience, probably older, is different than the direct crowd coming to you on Instagram.
Yeah, writing, and then, I mean, every audience is different. I've done like videos and some work with men's health too, and that's a completely different audience. It literally makes me like have a physical reaction because I feel like it's a very aggressive audience. And then you have,
they were mean to you, right?
Not nice, which is fine too. Like I think that that's also part of getting older too. Is like you're not going to be for everyone.
Do you want to tell them what they said or no?
I can't even remember. Just something about, I think I was like doing videos. They're just like, I don't, what was the specific one? I don't actually even remember.
They commented on something about your exterior. I forget. I don't remember. I know it's for Men's Health, but I don't remember if it was a man or a woman that wrote it.
Just so completely taking away any credentials from me too, which is like, you know, which is really, really important at this stage in the game too. Like, I'm too old to be like, you know, an Instagram, so like that's not my goal. Not that there's anything wrong with that at all. I just like, that's not where I'm going in life. And so the credential factor and like education stuff is really important. So I think we're both always trying to continue and like learn more. And when you know more, like share more and share better too. And so, you know, when I go back, I'm scared to even like go back a year or two ago into my old, what I used to post, but
me too. I mean, same.
Sorry, information. And I think you're so good at this too, like talking about it.
Yeah, but I'm saying like your audience now, you know, is being cultivated for you. And if they're listening to what you're saying, you're becoming more, you're learning. You're going back to school to learn more about the science of individuality and functionality.
Yeah.
And hopefully, you know, your audience will come to you because of that, in which case your audience isn't the extremely, you always have to use some caution, right? Because you could be anybody, but you're right. You're not going to give like blatant weight loss advice, but.
Yeah. And I totally used to just give blanket sort of information and weight loss and being skinny and like beach body stuff. That was when I entered this profession, that was what people talked about.
I mean, even as recently as 3 or 4 years ago, I feel like that was what we were about.
Right. Yeah, and that's changed tremendously. So that's like actually really exciting too, to see how far we've come in a short amount of time. And I
don't you think like you're going to go back to school soon, right? Ish.
Yeah. I'm going to do a women's health functional medicine program.
Okay. How cool is that? As opposed to like if you chose a program 4 years ago, which probably would be like weight loss for women
in 7 days.
Right. So that would be the course.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I'm super excited, and I do think like things come at the right time.
And weight loss might be the byproduct of a lot of what you learn, because when you get things to function on a cellular hormonal level, you're going to go to your weight. Naturally, you should, assuming all things fall into place. But that may mean weight loss. It may not.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I do think once you get the inside in order, the outside falls into place. That's like a Wayne Dyer quote or something, some like earthy, but getting things figured out internally, whether that's on a like emotional, spiritual level, or that's on a cellular hormonal level, that is going to really affect what's happening outside.
Everything. And it makes like the most sense. It's like, which came first, sort of the chicken or the egg? And it's like, we sort of have an answer here. If we get really, you know, on a scientific level, it's like, okay, well, where are your hormones? How are they being regulated? And where are your neurotransmitters being produced? How are they being produced? And how are your cells talking to each other before anything could even like make sense? We're just getting like one piece of the puzzle down, and then the rest kind of falls.
Right. And I think we've all been focusing way too much on the external one. And so it's just like, yeah, it just is becoming.
Have you seen the transition in your office at all?
I'm trying to coach people through that a little bit more. People still come in very much, I want to lose weight, I want to lose 10 pounds. It's good for me to sort of bring me back to what's really going on out there.
I agree.
Yeah, and so
I'm so dissociated from it, and sometimes it feels like there's no work left to do. What do you do when somebody wants to lose 10 pounds, but they, in your opinion, don't have 10 pounds to lose?
We will really talk about why those goals are important, where that number came from. Sort of, we'll get into like a food history, and I will say like I don't think that's realistic for you.
Perfect.
So right. I think also, but back up to one thing you're saying, like my WebMD editor, so I haven't written for them in a while, but they used to be like, Carolyn, this is the Walmart audience. This isn't your New York City green juice drinking crowd. This is Cheetos buying, soda drinking, you know, United States. And so I think, you know, in New York City, we do get really dissociated from the reality of the country. But trust me, girl, there's work to be done.
Right. No, I mean, right. I mean, there's definitely work to be done. And especially that's why I'm never going to personally, you know, go gung-ho in any specific direction of like, you know, I work with disordered eating, but that doesn't mean that I won't help people lose weight appropriately if being right. So like just making sure that I'm always making sure that I'm never two different people, I think is the most important thing, right? So like being able to go on TV and talk to the Dr. Oz audience, but provide that information in a way that isn't sending anybody off into the deep end of being like, skinny, you have to do this, but still providing people with nutrition information, science that I think they deserve to know.
Right. I think that that's a really perfect way to explain it too. And like, we have to be doing those things. Actually, I had a thought earlier. One time I had to do a little segment and it was like a news silly thing. And I remember not sharing it because I didn't like the way that I looked. I felt like I gained that weight. And so that's also something too, like that, you know, when these opportunities arise, like you don't want to be embarrassed of how you look. So not to totally change the subject back to that, but I just think that like, that's something.
Actually,
I think I didn't share it. I went on it, but I never like put it out there.
But do you think you were just being hard on yourself?
I don't know. I should go back and find it. No, I don't think I was. But I think I just wasn't happy, which also you're allowed to be. You know, when you see a picture you don't like, you don't have to share it. So I don't always think that there has to be such shame about it either. Like you're allowed to have a crappy day and not show
That's
the work.
fair. I mean, I think that's probably a realistic way to look at it. Yeah, there's something that I recently was on too, and I has nothing to do with weight, but I just hate the way I look. And I don't know, I feel like that's a tough one for me because
it's with the like social media wise.
I'm supposed to, but I haven't.
Yeah.
No, I just really like, I don't know, just sometimes you see a picture of yourself, and this is being like so honest, right? And it had nothing to do with weight for me for that at all. Like there was no weight. I just like hated the way I looked. But like, is that allowed? I don't know.
I think
for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think
that's okay for me.
But you could even look beautiful. You could like have your hair and makeup done and still have a bad angle shot, right?
Right. No, exactly. That's actually what it was. My hair and makeup was done, but the way it was just looked like really painful to me. Like, but I don't want to have those feelings because I want to be able to practice what I preach. And to me, that means like owning bad days, but I'm just talking out loud, but like bad day for me, you know, I'm okay posting like a picture where I don't feel I look like my thinnest or fittest or whatever, but there's like this one way where I just don't like the way I look.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure you look beautiful. If you sent it to me, I would be like, post that shit. But I also think you need to honor that too. Like you don't need to put something out there that you feel like is not that it would be embarrassing, but that's just like how I would feel about this specific thing.
Yeah, and it's more like I don't feel like I look that way, so I don't want to put it up.
There you go. Let's reshoot.
Thanks for walking me through that.
No, I think it's important though to have those like, you know, see where it leads to and what you end up concluding with it.
Right. All right. Well, this was so fun. Thanks for hanging with me.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome, and I learned a lot from.
I learned a lot from you as always. All right. Love you.
Love you. Bye.
Yes, you received an email on the clip. Okay.